Is anyone else sick and tired of touchscreens? Like, I don't mean on your phone, because the one on your phone actually works. It has, like, enough quality and enough processing power that actually understands where you're putting your finger. I'm talking about, like, at gas stations, at grocery stores, when they have to have, like, a 1/4 inch of plastic between your finger and the screen, and you're jabbing buttons, and it's clicking in other locations, and it's just not updating, or you're trying to use your car's central console, and you just want to turn on your music, and you're just sitting there jabbing your button again and again and again, and it just doesn't work. And there's no reason for it because it's just programmed badly. I hate touchscreens. They are this novelty. Oh, we're just going to jam a touchscreen onto every laptop so we can upcharge you $100 because don't you want to accidentally click on things when you pick up your computer every freaking time? Oh my God, I want tactile buttons back. I'm James Craig. I'm a science fiction author. I need to start saying that at the beginning because I do need people to buy my books and stuff. But I'm just opening with that rant because actually today I read a recommendation by Elon Musk, which I don't think that's particularly weird to take a stories recommendation from one of the world's richest men. It's controversial, and look right there. 11.6 million people saw that he recommended reading The Machine Stops by E.M. Forster. And I will also recommend it. And right now I'll just say that it's like 25 pages. Honestly, I'm probably going to talk for longer than it should take you to read that book. Maybe. Book. Short story. It's really short. It really gets to the point. There's no fluff to it. There's not a lot to it at all, actually. This is a 1909 short story in the old school science fiction tradition. It has an idea. It sets up the idea. It alludes to it. It contrasts the philosophical ideas it's going for. And then it brings it to a conclusion. Character is present, but character really doesn't drive it. Because in a lot of ways, this is about the idea and his commentary, E.M. Forster, his commentary on essentially the fate of industrial society. And there's no particular reason I've been thinking lately about industrial society and its future. If you take the plot, I can really simply summarize it. Think about WALL-E. I'm sure you're familiar with WALL-E. Now strip out the love aspect, strip out the environmentalism, and you just look at the collapse of society where everyone is a fat blob riding around on automated cars, having everything hand-delivered and food shoveled into their mouth, and then it all collapses. Yeah, that's The Machine Stops. It separated by 100 years, which I think gives it a lot of intellectual curiosity to it, because this was 1909, and yeah, the technology is weird. Like these people live in pods, and the machine gives them everything they could possibly need. But to get the things they need, it's not like there's an artificial intelligence automatically giving them. There's just this array of buttons. And they have to reference a user's manual, which is just bizarre by our standards. But, 100 years ago, people were taking guesses about how technology would improve and change, how people would work with it. You can go back to like Brave New World, I think used screws to control the planes or the helicopters or whatever it was they had. No computers, everything's still analog, because I probably should have looked this up, but the very idea of digital processing didn't work until recent, I think in the 20s or something. There was a PhD thesis on how to signal correct a digital signal so that computing would actually work. But you have all these brilliant thinkers, and sometimes average thinkers that just did enough thinking, that were trying to take guesses about the way society is going, and they just didn't conceive of the way technology would change. So you get these weird quirks, and the retrofuturism is part of that. So it makes the stories a little interesting to read. And as I alluded to at the beginning, I'm jealous that they still have tactile buttons to rob them of all their human dignity. At least their buttons actually do the thing. Until the machine stops, anyways. Obviously, that's the entire premise of the story. The story itself, to just spoil it because it's really not ruined by having it told to you, is it follows this mother who is struggling with her son because she is fully integrated into like the academic world of this sort of post-scarcity industrial society, where she is so alienated, so deracinated from all things human, that she is working on like 10th hand interpretations of interpretations of interpretations of interpretations to try and create new ideas, even though like the dogma of the times is that first-hand experiences and spiritualism and the life are all dangerous ideas because they come from base and vulgar urges and such. And the fact that when you get into ideas like that and you go, oh, this came out in 1909, I think it's just kind of hilarious in a sense. It's scary and concerning about the way society has been developing, but here we are. Maybe we can, act accordingly. But the story basically kicks off with her son saying, I want to go outside. And it's revealed that all society now exists in these subterranean city complexes, colloquially called the Machine, which is, of course, a mechanical stand-in for the civilization that has been built, where it's progressed to such a degree that all needs, all wants are provided directly to the person, and that it creates this pathology of being afraid to go outside, being afraid of human contact, being afraid of basically everything that challenges them. Except her son wants to go outside. He wants to get back to his roots and experience. He brings it up as let me pull this up, but he constantly references, like, I want to see Wessex the way the Danes saw Wessex. He wants to go back to the connections of history and the roots of his ancestors, which I think a lot of people, but not everyone, will understand that very deeply. Which actually I think as a writer, gives some interesting questions of things like, do you follow is a character supposed to be average and relatable, or is it the fact that they are unusual, it makes them a good character? And that's the kind of question that just a good writer has to make their decisions and choose how to focus the story. And in this case, it is the contrast between mother and son, to show the entrenched dogma of this society versus a more liberated spirit. And obviously, this story has, I don't even know if it's directly influenced, but the ideas have a direct descent down through a lot of dystopian fiction, because it's just one interpretation of humans are specializing, and then losing their grasp of the world. And you go back hundreds of thousands of years to the hunter-gatherer period, and the people alive at that time were not exactly masters of their fate, but their fate was largely in their control, and they understood everything from how to make their tools, how to find their food, how to tell poisonous from healthy food apart, how to hunt, how to deal with each other, where their territory was, what they could do given this or that. And sure, they could get a scratch, get infected, and die, and they don't have the incredible apparatus of modern medicine to protect them against that. But they were masters of their domain. They had this freedom to them, which can be very favorably compared to, say, a Twitter employee working in a cubicle managing one subset of package communication errors that are happening when they try to send signals from Germany to Saudi Arabia or something. The way technology pushes, you need more and more and more people in more and more specialized roles, and it gets to the point where nobody really knows how everything works. And in the story, that's when everything breaks. That's when the machine stops. When people stop understanding how the system works, they can no longer repair it. They can no longer keep it going. They just devolve into vulgar decadence and perhaps into a religious adherence to this system that they themselves created. blinding themselves to the problems that are coming. Because if you speak out against it and you say, hey, maybe we have a problem, maybe they can't fix the mending machine that fixes everything else, you are going to be on the wrong end of a lynch mob right there. And maybe you can think of some parallels to people going, hey, maybe the systems we're building right now are not sustainable, and then you're, boom, persona non grata. It's been happening forever. It always happens. That's basic human nature. We're just at a different technological stage where things can happen faster and more people are in communication with more people. So, like I said, Elon Musk actually tweeted this out as a recommendation. And I have to imagine that he read it a long time ago. Even I had read this back in high school, I think. I've at least had it recommended to me before. And you can tell what the plot is just from the title. But I have to imagine that he basically walked into Twitter HQ one day and was just like, well, how does it work? And just got these blank, glossy-eyed stares back at him where people go, well, I know what my job is. I do these doodads, and I update these things, and I try and reduce this, blah, 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 blah. And, I pass that over to the guy over there, but he doesn't really know what I'm doing. I don't really know what he's doing. We don't know how it drives into the grander scheme. And just nobody knows how Twitter was actually functioning. Presumably, that's why he was able to fire like 90% of the staff and the site didn't go down, because it got to the point where people were doing useless things that didn't really contribute anything. Here's a great example of when systems get too big and people lose sight of the scope. There's a big conspiracy. Like, a lot of people think space is fake, and one of the things that they point to is the gap since the last time we went to the moon. And you can get quotes from NASA engineers that they don't know how to build the spaceships anymore. That's not a conspiracy. That's because they had poor record management, basically, because they didn't know the things that they had to document. And then people aged out because they didn't realize that in order to make the Saturn V rocket engine, you needed to know weld techniques and alloy materials and the way certain things were bent to create the exact amount of internal pressure and the cold working and the annealing of components. Okay, so we got these alloys at this ratio of metal, but it had to come from this region because they process it with these chemicals. If you simplify the question to, the engineers at NASA are supposed to know. Well, the engineers at NASA were buying components from private sector suppliers. And then when these things aren't properly documented and people grow out, age out and they retire and die, they didn't necessarily pass it down. Every trade in America right now is in danger of basically complete collapse because there aren't enough new workers coming into the field before the current crop retires. They aren't going to be able to learn the tricks of the trade fast enough. And then suddenly we're going to realize that we're paying $50 an hour for a plumber who doesn't understand what plumbing code is. That's probably happened to some of you viewers. So when everyone is hyper specialized, because that's what's required to go to the moon, you need a huge amount of people, a huge economy, and everyone has to be able to do their part of the job very specifically correctly. You get a disturbance, and you can't exactly put the pieces of the puzzle back together. Elon Musk thinks that AI is going to be some paradigm shift. I think we're already there. Compare it to he should know best of all, actually, because he started a car company. And he was unable to start from a blank page. He had to buy the designs to a car and start from there and turn it into an electric car to make Tesla. If you set engineers down at a blank page and say, build a plane, they can probably get airborne, but they're not going to build a jumbo jet Boeing. Not for a long, long time, maybe never. Because they may end up with a different set of design best practices. And it just will look different because they'll say, oh, we have to do these certain things for safety. Whereas other people say, oh, no, that's completely irrelevant. That's never going to happen. Who cares? And then if you lose the information, if something goes wrong, the whole system will eventually collapse. And, that was a big danger when everyone was worried about, what happens if the supply chain happens? If we lose the power grid and diesel stops getting pumped around, how long until Mad Max? I think at this point I've rambled enough about the old and the new and the things that we can take of that happened recently compared to the thoughts from 100 years ago. Like I said, this is a good short story, I think. Maybe not by hypercritical literary standards, because like I said, this is an idea story from the old era of science fiction, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It was actually quite good, and it's like 25 pages. I'll put the link in the description. You should check it out. Again, this is by Ian Forster, and very, very famous British author, right? I'm thinking maybe one of his books should get chosen for a future book club. By the way, we're still doing Foundation by Isaac Asimov. There'll be a link to the Gilded down below if you want to join. Like, subscribe, drop a comment. When you comment, tell me your favorite interpretation of societal collapse. Which story, which movie, which book, not the post-apocalyptic stuff. I want to hear about the collapse. Which story do you think did it the most interesting and why? Tell me down below, and until next time, cheers.